Welcome to this year's communication meeting regarding the proposed 2016-2017 county tax rate and the 2017 budget. Hello, I'm Dave Barkemeyer, Milam County Judge, and I'll be reviewing our 2016 performance year-to-date as well, since what's happening to us this year is having a huge impact on what our plans for next year will be. I particularly want to point out to you the impact that the Luminant Company's contesting of its property valuation is having on the county's budget, and the impact that it's having on you and I as taxpayers and citizens of Milam County, which is very important for you to understand as well. This next chart will show you what's happening this year and what's expected to happen next year. Luminant paid in $815,000 in round numbers in January for this year based on their opinion of value of their Milam County properties versus $3 million, which was the tax bill sent to them by the tax office, and that was based on the Milam Appraisal District's rendering of their property, which was $463 million. Therefore, the shortfall in this year's tax payment by Luminant is just over $2.2 million. Luminant has filed a lawsuit in the district court claiming that their property in 2015 was worth only $125 million. This year, 2016, they're now claiming that their property is only worth some $50 million, and we're expecting that they'll only pay $713,000 using the 70-cent tax rate that we're proposing for this next year. The appraisal district has rendered their property at $435 million this year, and at the 70-cent tax rate, their tax bill again will be just over $3 million. So they're expected to underpay some $2.33 million this year. So their total underpayment will be a cumulative $4.5 million for these 2 years combined. Now, keep these numbers in mind as I go through our financial situation so far this year and our budgetary projections for 2017. Let me show you how we're faring this year financially. The county budget is made up of 3 parts. That would be the general fund, the precinct accounts, and our debt service account, which are the payments that we make on our bonds each year. First, let me review how we're doing on the general fund. The left-hand column shows the budget, and the right-hand how we're expecting to end the year. The top portion shows the revenue, and the bottom the expenditures. Ad valorem taxes normally make up about 70% of the general fund revenues. This year we've collected some $5.22 million in taxes on a budget of $6.72 million, leaving a shortfall of $1.5 million. This is due to the Luminant short payment. The other 30% or so of our revenue comes from other sources. We're expected to bring in about $3.58 million versus a budget of $3.35 million, which is about $250,000 more than we budgeted, and that's good. Most of this overage is due to the housing of inmates from other counties in our county jail, which is running well above expectations, which that's great. We've been running at capacity for over a year now. Because of the Luminant underpayment, we'll have to spend all of our general fund reserves of $825,000 by year end. So our total available revenue in the general fund is about $9,625,000. Now that's well under our budget at $10 million. Again, due to the Luminant short payment. We budgeted to spend $10.592 million, but we're estimating that we will spend between $10 and $10.4 million this year, well under budget. However, this will be as much as $775,000 more than our available funds of $9,625,000. So we're planning on borrowing as much as $800,000 in short-term funds to finish out 2016, realizing that the Luminant dispute is not expected to be settled until sometime next year. Okay, the next chart that I'm going to show you will be the status of our 4 precinct accounts. Their primary source of funding is ad valorem taxes, with only 10 to 15% of their revenue coming from other sources, which is primarily from license plate fees. However, these past 2 years, the commissioners are receiving a substantial amount of funds from TIF grants for road projects and from FEMA as a result of the flooding which has occurred. Each precinct is budgeted to receive just over $900,000 in ad valorem taxes, but they've only received a little over $700,000 this year, again due to the aluminum underpayment. Their other primary source of funds being the license plates fees, with $140,000 each being collected this year. This $200,000 in shortfall in ad valorem taxes multiplied by the 4 precincts is an $800,000 shortfall, and if you add that to the $1.5 million that we're under in the general fund, accounts for the $1.2, $1.3 million total underpayment by aluminum of the tax bill this year. In the middle of this chart on the right hand side, you can see the reserves that the 4 precincts currently have. Precinct 1 has a $1.4 million, Precinct 2, $568,000, Precinct 3, $595,000, and Precinct 4, $427,000. And at the bottom, you see the TIF grant money and the FEMA money that's come in so far this year, which totals about $500,000. So therefore, even though the precincts will end the year with a shortfall as well, just like the general fund, they'll not need to borrow since they have adequate reserves to weather the financial squeeze at this point. The next thing I want to show you is what's happening with the Milam County tax roll and what will happen if aluminum's position on their valuation is sustained in the courts. So here you see this year's appraisal district rendering of Milam County's property values versus 2015. These numbers that you see here do not include approximately $40 million in contested properties that we have this year. Almost all of the contested properties are land and homes. And so when those come back into the numbers, it'll only enhance the points that I want to make with you here. There are three categories of land which are shown at the top of the page. Total taxable value of these categories is $273 million versus the $230 million that they were valued at in 2015. So our land values are up some $40 million over last year, the taxable portion of it. Market value of agricultural land went up over $100 million this past year in the appraisals. But the taxable value of ag land only went up $21 million because the ag exemption value also went up about $80 million. So, but even the $21 million is significant. Home sites, which is all of the lots, both in the city and the sites that your houses are on out in the country, also went up about $10 million over last year. And all the other land values that don't have ag or have a house setting on them went up to a total of $127 million. So those three categories make up all of the taxable land value, which is $273 million total. The other category that I want you to pay particular attention to is that of our homes. Total value of our homes is $557 million, that's taxable, and that's up $65 million from last year. Now the other two categories are structures and commercial industrial, and you got to look at those together because the aluminum properties switched from one category to the other last year. And these two categories combined total $1.4 billion, and they're down $30 million from last year, and that's due to the reduction in the value that the appraisal district made of the aluminum properties nothing to do with the contested 400 million or so that Lumina is contesting. Also note that minerals are down 22 million from the 54 million that they were valued at in 2015. And if I had the numbers for 2014, you'd see that in 2014 they were at 100 million. So they've gone from 100 million to 54 million to this year 22 million. So our mineral valuation in Milam County has gone to almost nothing. The point to be made here is that land and homes have significantly increased while everything else has decreased, and that primarily being industrial, commercial, and minerals. But if the appraisal district loses its case and its position on aluminum properties values is not sustained, another 400 million in our tax base is lost, and our freeze taxable values will be down to a mere just over $1 billion, 1.15 billion. So that is a serious situation, but more significantly than that, for you and I as homeowners and landowners, the tax base of Milam County dramatically shifts, and not only is the tax base forced downward, but a major portion of our tax base and therefore our taxes shifts to landowners and homeowners as well. And that's a message that I wanted to try to get across to all of us that own land and homes, which is the majority of us here in the county. Now, here's what actually happened this year. Land and home values are up 108 million. This will go even higher as the 40 million in contested values is resolved. The other categories, as I've said, industrial, commercial, and minerals combined are down 63 million. So net appraised values are up only 48 million when you subtract these out. However, the homestead cap allows taxable homestead values to only go up 10% a year. So the homestead cap stops another 37 million of this increase in our homes and land, and being the home part of it, from going to the taxable category. So, and a little 7 million of it also of our exemption were lost. So our net appraised value increased only 19 million. On top of that, our freeze taxable properties, which are those of us over 65 years, our taxable values are frozen, so they don't go up. And that knocked off another 10 million. So bottom line, freeze taxable properties only went up $9 million this year. So unfortunately, any increase in county property values will have almost no effect on producing more revenue for the county this next year. The increases that many of you had in your property values did not make it to the bottom line as far as the county government's concerned in producing more revenue for us. Okay, let's get into the proposal for next year. The proposed tax rate for next year is 70 cents. This is a 4.8 cent increase over the current rate of 65.2 cents. It'll take about 4.36 cents of this to service our bond debt, and the rest will go toward our operations. This is about a 7.4% increase, or a 9.4% increase over the effective maintenance and operation. That is a significant increase in our tax rate, no question about it. And as we've stated in the notice in the newspaper, the reason for this is because of the litigation that's going on over the aluminum valuation. The effective tax rate for 2016 of 63.9255 and the 2016 rollback rate of 70.3957 that's been communicated is the correct effective tax rate and rollback rate. That the budget will raise a little over $800,000 in additional ad valorem taxes this next year over last year. Again, That'd be if Luminant would pay their taxes based on the appraisal district's valuation of their property. Unfortunately, we don't expect that to happen. But at any rate, the increase in the tax rate will produce about $800,000 more for us. Almost none of that resulting from the increase in valuation of the properties. Also, we see that there's some $169,000 of this increase will be due to the new properties that have been added to the roll since last year. And you see a repeat of the tax rates that I've already mentioned at the bottom of that page. And you see right at the very bottom that our outstanding bond obligations are at $4.765 million, and that's the bonds that we have that were taken out to build a new law enforcement center, and all of those will be paid off in 2024. The next page of the proposal shows 2015 revenues and expenditures, the expected revenues for 2016, and the estimated revenues and expenditures for 2016's proposed budget. These numbers include the Luminant taxes that were supposed to be paid along with our reserves, including the precinct reserves, which we always build into the budget in case we need them. But I'd like to show you the numbers with these numbers taken out so you can better see what will actually, or what we are projecting will actually happen to us overall this year and next year. This first one here is where we're expecting to be at the end of 2016 with all three areas of the county budget combined: the general fund, the 4 precincts, and the debt service. With Luminant's actual, what they actually paid in, and with none of the reserves from the precincts included. In revenues, we've collected a total of $8.6 million in ad valorem taxes. We'll take in about $3 million in fines and fees and about $1.2 million in sales taxes for a total of $12.8 million from our usual sources of revenue. We've gotten $485,000 year to date from the TIF grants and the FEMA reimbursements, and we should get, I don't know how much, 100,000 or more by year end. We're planning to spend our $825,000 general fund reserves this year, and we'll borrow as much as $800,000 to finish out the year in the general fund. So you can see how much money we'll have to spend. And we're projecting to spend somewhere around $10.25 million in the general fund accounts and some $5 million in the 4 precincts. Our bond payments this year will total $623,000, so we'll spend about $15 million and or $15.75 million. In other words, we expect to have a shortfall of several $100,000 in the precinct accounts at year end, which the commissioners will cover as necessary from their reserve accounts. Here's what we expect to occur with our proposed budget, which includes a 70-cent tax rate for 2017, with the Luminant payment being only $714,000 in round numbers. And we expect $3 million plus that they'll be billed for, but they won't pay. And with no reserves in the general fund, we'll have spent all of our general fund reserves, and we'll have no planned reserve expenditures from the precincts and what the numbers I'm going to show you anyway. So here we go. We'll actually collect next year $9,435,000 in taxes. Now that's just with Luminant only paying in $714,000. Now that's about $800,000 more than last year due to the tax rate increase. We project collecting $3.4 million in fines and fees. That's a $400,000 increase over what we expect in that area this year. And we expect the same amount of sales tax, same as last year, 1.2 million. So expenditures will increase somewhat to a total of about 17 million next year, including having to pay back the 800,000 or so that we'll borrow to finish out this year. So we'll be at the most about $3 million short. Now remember that Luminant will have a shortfall or a short payment on what they're supposed to pay of $4.5 million due to, and plus maybe some penalties if the appraisal district's position on their property values is sustained by the courts. So the best case scenario at the time the lawsuit is settled has them paying their back taxes, and at that time the county can then replace the reserves that have been expended, and this $3 million deficit up to $3 million will be covered. Now the worst case scenario is that the county will have to borrow an additional up to $3 million in long-term debt. And if the case isn't settled by then, we'll have to do some interim type financing until the case is settled and we know where we stand. And if we do lose the case, we will cover this shortfall with long-term debt, build it into our debt service. Remember that our bonds that we have will totally be paid off by 2024, which is about 7 years out from now. And so we'll put this in, probably go to like a total of a 15-year payback on long-term debt. So it's doable. It's not desirable, but it's doable. And unfortunately, we most likely, or we definitely will have to increase our tax rate some more, probably another 5 cents or so. And we will have to drastically cut county services to accommodate the reality of a loss of approximately 30% of the county's tax base. Hopefully we won't have to deal with this crisis, but we will if we have to. Now, for a rundown of some of the noteworthy changes in the 2017 budget. We've upped the budgeted revenue for housing inmates from $550,000 to $730,000, which is a $280,000 increase. And we feel like, unless something drastically changes with our contracts with Coryell and Passes County, that is definitely doable based on our last 2 years of performance with them. The sheriff jail operation is a contract to house these inmates from these 2 counties. We take all of their excess, which sometimes is more than we can handle, so we in turn sometimes have to farm out the overflow to other counties. So we budgeted $100,000 in expense to accommodate this, and they're primarily handled by Lee County. We budgeted to pay an adjustment of $100,000 per year for the jail staff and dispatchers, which has been they've been handling this full capacity of our jail for the past almost 2 years now, and are well below average pay in our 12 county survey. This increase will affect our budget by about $55,000 over a year's time. And we are going to begin that increase in September of this year. We budgeted for a 2% across the board pay increase for all of the county employees, but this will only be implemented if the courts rule in the appraisal district's favor on the Luminant case, and Luminant pays the additional $4.5 million in taxes that they will owe us. The amount of annual budget increase would be $163,000 a year for pay and benefits increases. The amount in 2016 would depend on what time during the year that this increase would be implemented. We also anticipate some increase in medical insurance premiums during the year, and we provided for an increase up to $700 a month per employee. The rate is currently at $652.60. The maximum annual cost would be $120,000. We also authorized the hiring of 2 additional sheriff's deputies at an additional cost of $98,000 for pay and benefits for 2 more deputies. This was due to our concern of having only 1 deputy on duty at night and on weekends. The Commissioners Court, along with the sheriff, felt that for safety and backup, the county needed 2 men on duty during these times when law enforcement is being endangered. Last year, during budget planning, we had considerable debate over the county health department and the county museum. It was decided to retain a county health department, but during the year, we did turn the operation of the museum over to the museum board and reduce cost in both of these 2 operations. Since 2013, the county has reduced full-time county positions from 168 to 154. We've been, year after year, cutting costs. Of course, the primary cost for the county is labor, and so we have been reducing. And in 2017, the number will remain at 154, even though we've authorized 2 new sheriff deputies. And the reason being that we've eliminated 1 full-time nurse in the health department, and we've eliminated the full-time position in the museum. Actually, at the present time, we only have 147 full-time employees. In fact, we usually run below the 154 number, and that we usually have some turnover going on at any given time, and some departments are running with open positions. One of the major problems we face at the county level is what we call unfunded mandates, things we're required to pay for with county funds that are imposed on us by the state legislature or by the federal government in some cases. Many of these are somewhat hidden, like having to collect fees and send them to the state for all sorts of things, including licenses, fines, having to keep all types of unnecessary records, duplicates, stringent jail standards that require extra guards, extra cells, and so on. Here are 2 of these unfunded mandates that particularly stand out. Indigent defense, which is court-appointed attorneys for offenders who claim they can't afford an attorney. We budget and spend over $250,000 a year, and the state, out of the goodness of their heart, says they'll help us with that with reimbursement. So we get, if we're lucky, about $30,000 a year of this $250,000. Indigent health care costs, you and I, local taxpayers, about $500,000 a year. We have some 100 of our local residents come in and claim that they can't afford their health care, that they're indigent. And if they qualify, then we Milam County taxpayers are required by law to pay their medical bills up to 8% of our general fund budget. And again, we get such wonderful help from the federal government, and Medicaid pays about $30,000 a year on the average to help us out with that $500,000 bill. Okay, here's some of the ongoing budgeted items that you may or may not be aware of. I get called all the time, people, once in a while I should say, people saying, well, I pay all of these taxes and I don't feel like my county road is being serviced like it ought to be serviced for all the taxes that I'm paying. Well, your county taxes go for many more things than maintenance of your county roads. Here's just a few of them. We contribute $91,000 to the 8 or so volunteer fire departments that we have throughout the county. We've added $2,000 this year, or for this next year, for Bartlett, who's built a new fire barn over there. And we're part of a 3-county juvenile probation department along with Falls and Robertson County. And our part of funding that group is $102,000 a year. We also fund the Milam County Adult Probation Department in the amount of $17,500 a year, as well as funding the county service coordinator, about $30,000 a year for she and her cost in that department. We also support the DPS group here in the county by supplying a clerk and equipment, $55,000 a year, and the Agri-Life group at $95,000 a year. We provide for all of these groups that I just named, the 4 groups, office space, utilities, and maintenance for their buildings. We help support the Rockdale Senior Center and Meals on Wheels at $45,000 a year. Bee's Kitchen, however, here in Cameron is supported by the Williams Foundation donations, as well as other local donations, and the participants partially pay for their meals. We provide utilities and maintenance for the building only at Bee's Kitchen. We're a part of a 3-party contract for Cameron, along with Cameron and Rockdale, providing ambulance service in the county. Each of us pays $95,000 a year for that. The county's annual fee for supporting the Milam Appraisal District is $250,000 a year, and the other county entities, including cities and school districts, pay a proportional share as well as we do. We continue to support Ken Yanishek, who provides service to the county veterans, and the budget for he and his service is $52,000 a year. Our support for the county museum, which we own, the county owns the museum here, for operating the county's museum is $25,000 versus last year's budget was $41,000, so we reduced that. And we're not providing any support right now for Cameron and Rockdale libraries and the Milam County Historical Group, and we hope to add that back in if we're successful in defending the Lumen case. And so those are a lot of things that many of you probably don't even know that some of your tax dollars go to support. But that's a part of the county, along with all the various departments, the law enforcement, the court systems, all of the things that we have to support on the budget that I'm describing to you. This past year, the radios in the sheriff's department vehicles and some of the other emergency response equipment here in the county, it was many years old, became unreliable and had to be replaced. We bought this equipment or leased this equipment on a lease buy arrangement. The annual payments on that are right at $79,000 a year, and we also have a maintenance contract for that and the tower and other equipment to go along with it at $30,000 a year. That's over $100,000 a year. Maintenance on our buildings and the utilities for our buildings run about $450,000 a year. We got lots of buildings, and our phone systems and our computers and so on runs about $250,000 a year. So what I've tried to do is to give you as good a rundown as I can on what our situation is. The full budget proposal, or if you're viewing this after September the 12th, the approved budget is posted on our website for your viewing. Each month during the year, I do a budget progress report in our Commissioners Court meeting to give you an update, and I do that the first meeting of each month, and then I post a PowerPoint of that presentation here on the website. I tell you, I really do regret having to raise the county tax rate so much this year, but this Luminant situation make this step necessary. In my opinion, we just don't know how this is going to come out, and we've got to survive, and we've got to give the attorney team time to carry that case through the courts and appeal process. And we just have to keep functioning as a county. Hopefully all or part can be reversed with a favorable outcome to the litigation that's pending. Thank you for your patience in this presentation.